for those clients who have weight loss goals, fat loss goals, big transformational ambitions, I think they're now starting to understand that it doesn't happen with this short, sharp burst of energy or activity or commitment. Discipline is the ability to show up every single day, even when shit's going wrong. It doesn't have to be this all or nothing, 100% effort towards the finish line.
Louise Hazel is an Olympian and a gold medal winning heptathlete.
She's a certified personal trainer and the CEO of Slay.
She trains Hollywood's rich and famous and has been featured in Harper's Bazaar,
GQ,
and Vogue.
Women's Fitness.
Fulfill your true potential.
Slay.
You don't become an Olympian in 75 days. This all or nothing mentality is not healthy, and it's not helping us, because that's not life.
75-day hard, is it just a waste of 75 days? Louise Hazel, welcome to Slay.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure.
What is your background?
I'm an Olympian and gold medal winning heptathlete. I'm also the CEO of Slay, which is a women first gym in Hollywood.
And what are your qualifications, and what makes you an expert in physical transformation?
I'm a qualified personal trainer. I have over 20 years of experience in the world of health and fitness. I've competed obviously at the top level in sport for over 15 years, one of the best athletes in the world, because I did the heptathlon, which is 7 events. So there's really not a skill or sporting thing that I couldn't tackle as an athlete. And more importantly, I've helped thousands of women transform their bodies all over the world, whether that be in person or online through our Slay app and Slay training programs.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the 75 Hard Challenge. Can you kind of tell us what that is and why that's top of mind for people right now at the beginning of the year?
Absolutely. So the 75-day Hard Challenge is a transformative mental toughness program. That's what it's marketed at. And it's devised by a gentleman called Andy Frisella. And why is it top of mind? For me, I've been seeing like a number of women online, and have been having a couple of conversations about people that are either taking part currently in this or have taken part like last year in the 75-day Hard Challenge. And I really need help understanding why in this day and age we're still opting for these like all or nothing physical challenges, even though he says it's not a fitness challenge. A lot of the premises and basis of it are basically rooted in health and fitness.
Okay, so what is it?
So it's effectively 5 daily tasks that you have to complete for the duration of a full 75 days consecutively. If you fail to complete one of those tasks, you have to start the challenge all the way over from scratch. Those 5 rules that you have to adhere to are: number 1, you have to adhere to a diet, a whole food diet. So no sugars, no processed foods, no cheat meals, no alcohol. Number 2, I think there's something like drink a gallon of water. The other one, number 3, is like you got to do 2 45-minute workouts a day, and one of them must be outside. Number 4 is you have to take a kind of before and after photo, so a progress photo once a day. And then the 5th and final thing is you have to read 10 pages. The thing that I think I struggle with the most, or the idea that I struggle with the most, is you have to read 10 pages of a non-fiction book. It can't be an audio book. You have to physically read.
Okay, so you have to do each of those 5 things every single day. And if you fail to complete one of them, the 75 days effectively starts over.
That's right. Yeah. It's pretty hardcore, but also like I've got a hard time just really comprehending why anybody would want to do it.
Yeah, and it's an interesting 5 things. So what do you think inspired the creation of that type of challenge?
So I don't know Andy personally, but I imagine that his inspiration behind the challenge was the fact that he probably needed to do something for himself. This idea that if I can just do this for 75 days, then I'm good enough, strong enough, fit enough, and somebody will X me. I feel like it's an external challenge. What does it mean to complete something like that? So maybe he was just feeling stuck. Maybe he was just feeling hopeless, frustrated. Maybe, he was feeling like he really needed to do something really drastic to get out of whatever situation he was in, which I think is why, challenges like this really appeal to people. I think there's a lot of us, especially post-pandemic, that can often feel stuck or like we have to do something extreme in order to be making progress or to feel seen or to somehow feel like we're enough.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that there's these 5 things, and if you don't complete one of them at any point, the entire thing starts over and someone has to start fresh. That's such an interesting kind of approach. Like, what are the biggest benefits of something like that?
Well, I think one of the biggest benefits of like an all or nothing challenge is that there are stakes. And if you think about our real day-to-day lives in our jobs, if we don't show up for work, if we, throw in the towel or whatever, then the stakes are we lose our job. So we're used to like there being consequences for our actions. And so this is a way of taking some of those stakes, either real or imagined, and really just putting some barriers in place. And almost some kind of like, if you think about when you go bowling and you can just toss that ball right down the lane, it can go in the gutter or it can hit a pin. They're kind of like barriers that kind of keep you on track. The question is, what direction are you going in? The thing that I really struggle with is, what's the real purpose? What are you getting from it? Like, is this even something that's serving you or your goals? I feel like people are haphazardly falling into these 75-day hard challenges without really thinking about what they want to gain from the back end. It's kind of under the guise of, I just need to be more disciplined and then I can, be more productive. Well, actually, that's not necessarily true, or I just need to eat better and then I'll be able to show up for work on time. No one really cares about showing up for work on time these days. We want to work from home. But you get my drift. It's like, if I can then it means I can something else. When the reality of it is we could probably just focus on the things that we really want to achieve and get really, really clear on the things that we're feeling frustrated about. I feel like there's an energy of frustration, and this is just almost like almost a way to procrastinate and really distract from what the root cause of whatever this discomfort is, or whatever the frustration is that you're feeling.
So what are some potential challenges that someone might face that decides to, participate in the 75-day hard challenge or something of the sort?
Yeah, well, I want to go back actually, because I do want to give Andy Frisella some credit, because I think, if you complete all of those 5 tasks for 75 days consecutively, pat yourself on the back. I could never do it. I wouldn't want to do it, first and foremost, but I could never do it. And I think for anyone that completes something like that, then you should feel more confident. You should feel like that, increased self-esteem. You should feel proud of yourself. You should improve your fitness. You should improve. There should be some health markers that also improve if you're doing 2 workouts a day. You know what I mean? And also a gallon of water a day. I'd like to think you're probably going to be more hydrated as well. But on the flip side to that, and I think it really comes down to what type of person you are. A challenge like this, if you're the type of person that gets to day 3 and constantly fails, gets to day 11 and constantly fails, then it has the potential to do the complete opposite. So it has the potential to actually knock your self-confidence. It has the potential to reinforce feelings of failure. It has the potential to really undermine your self-esteem. It's also not very personal. So we'll just read 10 pages of a non-fiction book. Granted, you get to choose the book, but for a person like me who doesn't particularly enjoy reading, I could probably spend those 10 or 15, maybe even 20 minutes on a task that is actually geared towards my goals. So again, the downsides, burnout, like you're doing 2 workouts a day, you could be seriously fatigued. Combine that with a diet plan that's not potentially right for you, then you're probably going to be in, quite chronically fatigued, even burnt out. And also possibly reinforcing negative thoughts.
Is this the reason that you said that you don't see it as a fitness challenge?
I think it is a fitness challenge.
Oh, you do?
100%.
Okay.
Andy Frisella, however, markets it as not a fitness challenge. Yet 4 of the 5 things he's asking you to do on a daily basis are health and fitness related. Drink a gallon of water, work out twice a day, stay on a diet, and take a before and after photo. Well, it's not a reading challenge, is it? If it's a before and after photo, and the final thing that isn't health or fitness related is simply like reading 10 pages of a book. So it is a fitness challenge. Is there some discipline and mental toughness that comes into doing that consecutively? 100%. But to say it's not a fitness challenge is completely, utterly inaccurate. More importantly, post his own before and after photos. And so there's this element of you will be transformed. So to provide a picture of like before and after, the expectation there is you will transform your aesthetic. You will transform your body from the inside out by tapping into that kind of highly functioning, disciplined self. Your outside will transform. Well, actually, all you're really doing is just doing 2 workouts a day, which is simply super unsustainable, eating possibly in a calorie deficit, hydrating yourself beyond you've probably any hydration you've ever had before, and, you know, taking a before and after photo and then reading a book. So my point is, like, you're probably, you know, taking part in a number of habits and a number of tasks on a daily basis that you wouldn't normally. Hence, you're going to change your body.
So what would I stand to lose if I didn't fully understand those pitfalls and I was to embark on the 75-day hard?
So I think the things that are at stake to the person who doesn't really know what they're walking into with regards to a 75-day hard challenge are a potential loss of time, loss of energy, and also potential even, you know, knock to your self-esteem, because I imagine there are very few people in the world that could actually even complete that. And more importantly, be honest about completing it. I was having a chat with one of the girls in the gym today. She said that she'd tried it. She got to day 11. And the reason that she did it was because her friends were doing it at a gym that she previously worked at. And one of them, when in conversation with them, she asked them like, oh, you know, I just kept feeling like a failure because it was like my niece's birthday and I wanted to have a cupcake and enjoy her birthday party, or, you know, I wanted to join in with the toast on that social occasion. And it was kind of like revealed to her that her kind of work and teammates were just kind of carrying on. So they were failing the overall challenge, but just carrying on as if nothing happened. So they were effectively like cheating their way through the challenge, but she was taking it really, really personally. And so I think, you know, what's at stake? Potentially just your mental health. You know, if you're a person who really suffers with like a fear of failure, isn't a need achiever, and potentially, you know, has the ability to really overwork or overtrain themselves, you could be walking yourself into some serious kind of like health issues.
So a controversial question that I have for you. 75-day hard, is it just a waste of 75 days?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you want from it. So I think the person who wants to get in shape in 75 days for a holiday is extremely fit already, but has let themselves go, who is, I think, already has a little bit of knowledge about nutrition and workouts so that they can program that so that they don't overtrain, they don't undereat, they don't burn out. But that's not the majority of people. Obviously, people who like to read as well. So is it a waste of time for the majority of people? Probably, just because it's not really specific enough for their overall needs. And more importantly, by saying it's not a fitness challenge, you know, it's kind of like a little bit misleading. So what is it then? It's a mental challenge. Well, there are so many other things that you could do in order to create or bring about mental toughness, you know, and more importantly, they don't all have to be done at the same time. And dare I say it, the real key is when it comes to any of these challenges, the real thing that you really need to consider is it sustainable? Because if it's not sustainable, then as we know, you're just going to reverse on all of those habits. So what happens on day 76? Like, do you just stuff it and go for a cheat meal? Do you just drink like a gallon of beer instead of a gallon of water? You know, does all of the hard work then go out of the window because you've restricted so much of yourself in order to just complete, you know, the challenge?
So let's talk a little bit more about the mentality that this is reinforcing, this all or nothing mentality. How do we resolve that in ourselves, that need for our lives to be all or nothing?
I think there's a real problem nowadays with us when we need to throw the whole kitchen sink or nothing at all at a task. This all or nothing mentality is not healthy, and it's not helping us, because that's not life. Life be life in. You know, if you think about what could happen over the course of 75 days that could derail you from this challenge, you could easily get ill. Then you'd have to start all over again. And when would you start? Once you're recovered, or would you just go straight back into it? So, you know, there are so many things. There might be somebody's birthday that pops up. There are so many things that we need to accommodate for and have flexibility for and allow flexibility for in our lives. Those things really make us human. You know, I think that rigidity is probably the death of progress, long-term progress. Like as an elite athlete, we would always have an overall rigid goal and outcome and an intended purpose, an intended destination. And that destination for an Olympian is to compete at the Olympic Games. Now, if I wrote down a 4-year training program to get me to the Olympic Games, and I expected and anticipated to hit that every single day, then I'd probably feel like a failure, because there's just no way. Why? Injury happens. Illness happens. One day the track could be snowed in. You could be snowed in. There's going to be a day when you know, pop a car tire. There's going to be a day whereby, you know, so many things can happen to you in a day. And it's not about giving up. It's about being flexible.
I think about you as an Olympian in the weight of 4 years of perfection.
Let's talk about the weight of 16 years of perfection, because really that's what it takes. Do you know, to think that you can become an Olympian in 4 years, there are very few people that can do that.
Okay, so let's take that then. Like the idea of that, if you took that 75 hard mentality and applied it to 16 years of training to be an Olympian, the weight of perfection for that 16 years, first of all, is impossible. But secondly, would almost seemingly be unbearable. So how do you in your life, with that experience, balance discipline with flexibility? And how do you help your clients balance discipline with flexibility?
Discipline is the ability to show up every single day, even when shit's going wrong. So it's the ability to still nudge and move an inch the needle forward in one particular item. So it might not be all 5 things that day. It might be that you made it to the track for a stretch. You didn't complete your whole workout, but you still made it to the track and you still stayed within that habit. It might be that you stayed your ass home because you got really, really sick and you rested for 3 days and you overcame your cold so that you could get back onto the track sooner and in better shape. It could be that you didn't force your way through that painful workout because you knew your hamstring was torn. And if you didn't go to the physio and see the hamstring doctor, then that could put you out for the season. So it's really about weighing up the decisions that are right for you. And so over the course of, let's say, like a 75 days for an athlete, that could look like absolutely anything. The intended goal and the training is still there, written there in pencil, but it can get scrubbed out and that could change any minute. The idea and the mentality is to keep the ball moving forwards. And that can be one day, it could be, you know, it could be 5 steps forward. And one day it might only be 1 step forward, and that's it. Keep the ball in play. Now, the same thing is true for my clients. One of the things I think that we're really starting to nail this year, especially for those clients who have weight loss goals, fat loss goals, more importantly, and have, you know, big transformational ambitions, I think they're now starting to understand that it doesn't happen with this short, sharp burst of energy or activity or commitment. They're understanding that actually, you know, if I can string together like a week of 7 days of consistency, I don't have to be consistent across all of the 7 days. I can actually make amazing progress in 7 days and have one of those days be kind of shit or not hit my macronutrients or not, you know, show up for the gym. But if I just then put that back together with another 7 days of like 80 or 90% effort, and then if I just do that again, then the compound interest of progress is literally like outstanding. They finally start to kind of crack it and understand that it doesn't have to be this all or nothing 100% effort towards the finish line. In fact, it's much more comfortable coasting along at around about 80%, biding your time, being patient, being confident in yourself and where you're going, and knowing that you're going to make the finish line anyway.
It sounds like the risk of having too much rigidity, that all or nothing mentality, the risk is burnout and actually a negative impact on someone's self-esteem. So if it is the risk of flexibility just someone who makes excuses?
I think there's definitely a connection between flexibility and risk. For some people, I've noticed that the more options you give them, the greater the incidence of failure. If you're that type of person, and I think that most people know what category they fall into, if they're given all of the options in the sweet shop, are they going to literally fill their bag with every single little bit of everything? Or are they just going to go for the one like piece of candy? Like, is the temptation of having it all too much? And this is a really interesting thing I see in the gym a lot, especially with our female clients, and especially pertaining to carbohydrates. So this is really interesting. I've noticed that some of our clients, you know, given the choice of having a high carbohydrate diet, or more importantly, a moderate carbohydrate diet and a low carbohydrate diet, they'll perform way better on a low carbohydrate diet when they think that carbohydrates are off the table altogether. Why? Because having that little bit of flexibility is basically permission to go and explore. And if you aren't a person who has a ton of discipline, a ton of self-control, then the floodgates have basically stayed really open. And so what I've noticed is often when it comes to our clients that are going through a period of fat loss, some of them perform way better when you narrow the options for them, which is one of the reasons why I feel like, you know, there are success stories from challenges like 75 Day Hard. You're narrowing people's focus. They're no longer able to focus on the things outside. You'll notice that all they talk about is day 2 of 75 Day Hard. They've forgotten about work. They've forgotten about this. They're just focused on getting through the day. But in my mind, you kind of put yourself a little bit in fight mode, and you should be able to operate in a place where you do have a lot of options, but you're making the right choices, even though they're all there and they're all available to you.
What are some of the success stories that you've heard?
A lot of people have basically said, this changed my life. So either it changed their life, it helped them to improve their overall lifestyle, their health and fitness. Perhaps they weren't working out before and now they're working out like on a daily basis. I haven't heard anybody say, this changed my life and I still do all of these literal 5 things every single day. And I'm not surprised, because it's not a challenge that was built for sustainability. I think it was a challenge that was built to really push you and show you your true potential and what you can do if you kind of focus just on a number of things every single day. And it reminds me of something that I learned a long time ago in psychology. I think it might have actually been in sports psychology, which is that we can remember 7 plus or minus 2 things, which is interesting because there's 5 rules. And so we can actually retain, let's say I gave you, 5 to 7 numbers, you'd be able to remember that amount. And so I think there's definitely there's something to be said about our ability to hone in on certain tasks, and that there's a finite amount of willpower that we have in any single given day. Once that willpower is out and is run out, that's when we tend to make those poor decisions.
Yeah, it's also interesting. I've heard you, mentioned here that the 5 things that you're focused on also matter.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, they do. The 5 things that you're focused on really matter. When I say help me to understand what this is, it's because for me, for one person, those 5 things might be the perfect 5 things that they need. They might be super dehydrated. They might, want to be on a diet and perhaps want to lose fat or lose weight. They might want to take a picture of themselves every single day just for the sake of it. They might want to read, 10 pages of the book. There might be a book that they're, desperately trying to get through. And they might want to do 2 workouts a day. This might be the perfect program for them. But I just think that for majority of people, if they had to pick 5 things in their life that they needed to improve upon to make them more optimized, to make them better at work, better in their family, better social life, better relationships, showing up for themselves, an improved and optimized version of themselves, they might not choose the same 5 things. They might need a complete different things. Like for me, reading 10 pages of a book, couldn't think of anything less I'd rather do. I'd much rather spend 10 to 15 minutes each day stretching. I think that would be a humongous benefit to me. I think it would calm my nerves. I think it would help improve my mobility. I think it would, all of the things that I'm trying to unlock physically in the gym, I'd have less pain. Yeah, that's what I'd spend my time doing.
Yeah, it sounds like really being clear about what you're trying to get out of those 75 days, if you were doing the challenge, would be really important to understanding if that challenge was really actually good for you or not. I think of a saying, it's better to do the right thing wrong than to do the wrong thing right. Because doing the wrong thing right just makes you better at being wrong.
That's a great quote, Eric. Did you make that one up?
I don't think I made it up. I'm pretty sure I've probably heard it. I'm not sure where.
I love that. But I think when we go back to the question, what's at stake? Well, yeah, 75 days is a decent amount of your time and energy. Wouldn't it be better to spend that, time and energy focused on 5 things that are really geared towards your own progress and your own goals, and having thought that through and what those things really are?
And what happens when the 75 days is over?
You tell me. Like, I imagine most people just go to the pub, phone it in. I think most people are done, right? If you want to retain those results, guess what? You're going to have to drink a gallon of water every day. You're going to have to complete 2 45-day workouts. You're going to have to stay on a diet.
Yeah.
You're going to have to take a photo, optional, every single day. And you're going to have to read those 10 pages of nonfiction.
So what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? Well, first of all, I'd change the name. I'd probably call it like a 90-day sleigh. I'd also consult with people. I'd be like, what is it you feel like you need help with? This is, first and foremost, this is a fitness challenge. What do you need help with? And more importantly, I would try and make it more sustainable for people. So I would actually split it into levels. I'd do a 90-day challenge, because 75 days hard is not hard. Hard would be, can you sustain something for a year? Can you run a marathon? That's freaking hard. These are habits that are tricky, but it's more importantly, it's like, first and foremost, for the first 90 days, can you give me 30 minutes of exercise every single day? And in 4 months' time, could that be 60 minutes? So I think we have to be really realistic in terms of what time people actually have in their day to commit to these 5 things that we feel would move their overall productivity or overall health and fitness forward. Can you give me 30 minutes a day? Can you give me 2 liters of water a day? Can you give me 6 to 7 hours of sleep? Can you give me, yeah, sure, why not, a before and after photo? Can you give me 15 minutes of self-care? That could be reading 10 pages of a book. It could be stretching. It could be meditation. Something that fills you up, as opposed to something that I've dictated should fill you up. And then, can you refrain from no smoking, no drugs, no alcohol for that period of time? And ultimately, I think the last one, which we've been talking about in the world of health and fitness for all of 6 months nonstop, is, can you give me 1 gram of protein per pound of your body weight? Because to turn around to somebody and say, yeah, let's throw you on a diet. Well, actually, give me the bare basics first. If you can nail those things, then we can have a conversation about level 2.
Something that you've talked about now multiple times today has been forward progress. You talked about, starting at 30 or 45 minutes of exercise, and now can you do 60? You talked about, as an Olympian, taking something on one day and saying, okay, I can't do all 5, but if I do this one thing, it's going to move me forward. Is it safe to say that the mentality of someone like yourself, which is about forward progress, is at odds with something like 75-day hard, which is about all or nothing?
100%. You don't become an Olympian in 75 days. It doesn't happen. You'll be lucky if you get there in 75 years. 7.5 years. It took me 15 years. So imagine how many 75-day hard challenges I completed in that 15 years. And I didn't start over from scratch. Like, if you fail as an athlete, like let's say you start a marathon, you get to 15 miles and you have to stop and walk. You don't go back to the start line. You keep going. You keep going, and hopefully you work your way through that stitch. Hopefully you find your stride again. Hopefully you find a moment in the race to be proud of, and you pick up the pace, and hopefully there's somebody cheering you on the sideline. And hopefully when you cross that finish line, you feel really freaking proud of yourself, not because of the result, but because of the journey.
Louise Hazel, thank you for sharing a bit of your mentality. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. That concludes this episode of Slay. Stay tuned for more empowering discussions on female health, fitness, and life. You can follow me at Louise Hazel on social media, and you can follow Slay at Slay Athletic Club. And don't forget to subscribe to the Slay podcast now if you haven't done so already on YouTube, and leave us a comment. You can also get fit at home using the Slay app. You can hit the link in my bio to download it now for free from the App Store to join our online community.